Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the delay, but we do promise you a sparkling session. We have some wonderful panelists on board. The topic of discussion is, where is the new reader taking Indian publishing? The chair of the discussion is Ashwin Sanghi, a writer of historical fiction in the thriller genre. His novel, Chanakya's Chant, won the Crossword Vodafone Popular Choice Award. The panelists are Chetan Bhagat, author of 5 blockbuster novels and listed as one of the world's 100 most creative people in business. Ravi Subramanian, a banker by profession and a writer by avocation. He is the award-winning author of 4 best-selling books. And the multi-talented, multi-hued pioneer, Pritish Nandy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the panelists on stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. You've already been introduced to the panelists, so I will not get into further introductions. But I think today's topic is extremely interesting, particularly given the sort of panelists that we have here today with us. And it's a topic which, in fact, I have thought about tremendously, that is there something which we can call the so-called new reader? Where is the new reader taking Indian publishing? Is there anything that falls into that definition of new reader? And if so, what is that definition of the new reader? Let me start. I'll go alphabetically. So let me start with Chetan. Chetan, you've been called one of the 100 most influential people by Time magazine. And probably you're a person who has a very good pulse on what readers are looking for. I mean, if you didn't have the pulse, you wouldn't be selling the sort of numbers that you do. So, do you think that there is something like a typical new reader? And if so, who is that new reader?
Firstly, tell me, are you reading your notes from your BlackBerry?
No.
Is
No.
that wow? That's
No.
Why are we talking about this? Let's talk about V.S. Naipaul.
Yes.
Don't you think? No.
Or Girish. Or Girish Karnad.
And how we are all like really upset about something. Or no. Sorry. So I was just fascinated by your reading notes, and I think one of the places the new reader is taking us is to that.
Is that?
The screen might come sooner than we expect, and we better be prepared for it. Yeah, it is a bit like, what is the new reader? Of course, the new readers obviously are the new human beings who take birth, and the new generation that comes into reading. You can call them the new reader. Then there's also, I think, some people now who possibly have not read books before, but they are reading our books, and they are reading Pritish's columns, even though they never read columns, or things like that, or poetry, but they read Pritish's poetry. I think there is that segment of popular writing that has only picked up in India in the last 10 years or maybe even less. So I think that is therefore a little bit what the new reader is taking us. I think also the new generation, what they want is also taking us. And also, so in some ways they are taking Indian publishing to a good place, but in some ways the new reader is taking it to doom also.
Okay.
Because they're not reading. They are more interested in apps and smartphones and so many other distractions. So their new reader doesn't want to be a reader. That's a risk to the industry, I think. But I think these are some of the observations. Popular writing, e-books, those kind of things.
Pritish, if I may come to you. Amongst all of us, you have the longest career. I think your first book on poems. The first poetry book was 1967.
That's right.
So you have had a first-hand view of the way the literary scene has evolved in this country. So do you think that there is something which constitutes a change in the readership?
Yes, there is change. Without doubt, there is change. As Chetan rightly pointed out, there is change in terms of new technologies. There is change in terms of better marketing, better distribution. People are reading more books, or so it seems. But the point is, there were always two kinds of readers. Those who read books that they felt ought to be read, and there were publishers who were catering to them, and there were readers who read what they wanted to read, and there were publishers catering to them. I think the second kind of reader has a slightly more dominant hand today. So you have more people reading Chetan Bhagat or more people reading you than they would be reading possibly Premchand and Tagore.
V.S. Naipaul. don't miss the chance to say.
But does it mean that you are actually created a new environment driven by new readers? I'm afraid I'm not so sure.
Okay.
I did a book in 1972, a book of poems. We sold over 1 million copies. I'd be hard put to sell a tenth of that, a fraction, tiny fraction of that today. The point is, committed readers have always existed. Lots of committed readers have always existed. They read a different kind of stuff before. They read another kind of stuff today. They read it in books then. They read it on other platforms. But I am not so sure that the multiplicity of platforms is going to increase the consumption patterns. They may seem to, or they might increase the consumption patterns of a particular kind of fiction. But yes, 50 Shades of Grey will possibly sell more than Anna and In did, but that's actually the technology of marketing that has nothing to do with the new reader.
Okay.
And I think we need to acknowledge that. People had more time to read before. People don't have time to read today. So in a sense, Chetan is right. It's a far more distracted generation. But yes, it has more money in its hands, so it will possibly go out and buy more than they had bought before. I mean, our libraries were about 5,000 copies when I was a kid. It's over 2 lakh copies today. So, things change.
Yeah.
Things change
Absolutely.
because, you spend more, you tend to spend more. I mean, we live in times where everybody spends more, so they'll spend on books and apps.
Absolutely. Which in one way is not such a bad thing.
It is certainly not a bad thing. But again, it is not, in no way reflects the reader or his choices, except that he is more open, the younger reader, because the age group has come down in this country of people who want to read and not compelled to read,
Right.
but who actually want to read. This age group, they are ready to go out and pick up stuff, and so you're getting a new breed of writers. A normal writer work his way up from
Absolutely.
the base, and that would take years. In today's times, a writer like Chetan would come in and be a star overnight.
Right.
That's because the celebrity mechanism is big. You create stars all the time, and the media is hungry for stars. So today, as of yesterday, Girish Karnad is a bigger star than V.S. Naipaul, without having won the Nobel Prize. That's media consumption for you.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
media consumption for you. And nobody gave a tinker's damn about Girish Karnad till the day before, because they remembered him as the author of Hayavadana, which was an old play which was being enacted in the 70s, and he belonged to a completely different generation of writers.
Precisely.
He was doing grandfather roles in movies. Who remembered Girish Karnad? But The media created him back again, brought him back again. Why?
A new avatar almost.
Because you're hungry. You're hungry for stars.
Absolutely. On that note, let me come to you, Ravi. You're a person who, to a very great extent, has introduced Indian readers to the concept of a corporate thriller, banking thriller, financial thriller, as it were. If you look at the AC Nielsen list on any given day, you see that, at least as far as fiction goes, it's dominated by certain very specific genres. So, for example, at one point of time, campus romance seemed to dominate the charts. Increasingly, we've had mythology and historical stuff dominating the charts. Do you think there is a specific reason why certain genres seem to do better than others? And to a certain extent, are we authors nowadays pretty much pandering to what the market wants? Or have we lost the ability to actually be creative, independently creative, and create our own spaces?
Okay, well, Ashwin, before I answer that question, I just had a point of view on the,
Sure.
on the question you asked the previous two gentlemen. One point which we are missing out here is, because Pritish, you said that Indian readers don't have time. They're a lot more distracted these days than they used to be in the past.
Chetan said it. I endorsed it.
Yeah. Probably that's one of the reasons why the Indian reader is seeking a new type of literature. Okay. You look at heavy literature which takes them 5 days to read or 6 days to read. They don't have time for that. They are looking at authors who write something which they understand, something for which they don't have to reach out to the dictionary or the thesaurus every alternate minute, and something which can actually keep them awake at night. And you know, I put it as saying that these are the kind of readers who want books which will make the battle of between drooping eyelids and tired fingers. You know, the book should win the battle, and that's the kind of literature that these guys are seeking. And what's happening because of that is that given that these guys are going out to the bookstores, given that these guys are logging on to Flipkart and buying those kind of books, the publishers also have become a lot more savvier. The publishers are now going out and seeking out authors who can write those kind of books. And that's one of the reasons why you also find suddenly a huge number of Indian authors coming onto the literary scene. You know, and that's what is the change which the new Indian reader is bringing about in the Indian literary scene. You know, 5 or 10 years back, you wouldn't have even thought about an award for Indian authors. Okay, now everybody has started an award for Indian author. 10 years back, or 5 years back, when I launched my first book, If God Was a Banker, I struggled to convince Crossword to stock my books. I struggled to convince Rupa to print my book, to publish my book. They did it. But Crossword didn't order. There was one rack for Indian authors, and that rack was half full. 1/4 with Chetan's books. Okay.
That 1/4 sounds like a low proportion.
Okay. You actually walk into a Crossword today, the first thing which most of the readers do is either go to the bestseller or go to the Indian fiction section. You have a Salman Rushdie book getting launched, you have a J.K. Rowling book getting launched, they never make it to the number 1 on the AC Nielsen list. So those are the fundamental different changes which are happening in the Indian readership scenario, which we need to recognize. And authors like me, Chetan, and all, Ashwin, have been beneficiaries of that, or probably we've created that segment which others are beneficiaries of. But we need to recognize that. The publishers are recognizing that, and I think that is going to be a far more intense change than your e-books, than your mobile phones, etc. Mobile phones, e-books are all changes being driven globally, which, you know, Indian readers might adapt to. Okay, and they're adapting to, it will also come into India.
The question is, how enduring will this work be, first of all? Second question is that would you be writing corporate thrillers if Harshad Mehta had not burst into the scene a couple of decades ago and suddenly interested everybody in corporate life? The world has changed. We tap into what is happening around us.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are more corporate thrillers in the newspapers today, particularly if you look at what Mr. Vadra has been doing or Mr. Gadkari has been doing, than in the bookshelves, than on the bookshelves.
It's proved that fact is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all you people are doing is you're following something that's in the air. You're capturing that and trying to reflect your times in your work, the times will change.
Yeah.
You'll go back to campus romance one day, or you'll go back to something else one day. I mean, things change, and literature reflects that.
Do you think, Chetan, that, I mean, for example, for the longest time, you built up this huge fan following in terms of the novels that you wrote. And suddenly you took a call to come out with your own work of non-fiction. To a certain extent, a lot of people said, well, this is going contrary to the expectations of your readership. Do you think in today's environment, it's difficult to take a call which goes contrary to your readership's expectations? Are we getting slotted in by our own readers and end up doing more of the same stuff?
Yeah, firstly, let me tell you one story about the book racks and this Indian books versus foreign books. I went to T3 in Delhi, and there's a lovely bookshop there called W.H. Smith. So I saw the bestseller list, and there was no Indian author in it, which was quite surprising. There was just nothing.
Right.
So I called them and I said, why is this list like this? And they said, we don't put Indian authors on this bestseller list. But I said, should you write then white bestseller list? Or Chinese and white or something? I mean, why is its bestseller is not an opinion. You are not saying we like these books. Right. You're just saying this is the one that is. Sold and books. I think people should know because they buy based on this. And he's like, but these are like, but I said, you're in Delhi, near Gurgaon. Yeah. So why is there no? He said, no, but that corner is where you bloody Indians go there. So I took my phone out and I wrote down a tweet. Here, guys, let me show you India's racist brand. And I took a picture and I said, this tweet is going right now. And the only people who follow me on Twitter are people who read books. So, and I'm going to tell them not to shop from W.H. Smith. And you are paying 10 lakhs a month rent on T3, which is very high. So what would you like to do? So I'm giving you a table with only your books right here. And you're changing the whole thing. So now the Indian books are as prominent as that. They still segregate. I don't know why.
Absolutely.
But they at least have brought the Indian.
But it is very strange. In fact, this is the only one shop where I've seen this actually
So
happening.
I had to say it. I'm not talking about Naipaul, but I'm talking about Mr. Smith, who is W.H. Smith. Please don't be racist in our own country. Sorry, what was
the question was that are you forced by your readers' expectations?
There is new writers. We've seen it happen to actors. We've seen it happen to political activists also, who tend to play to the gallery a bit too much, and are a little too sensationalist because it gets applause, because it gets some claps. So I felt the same that, am I getting trapped in this image? And at some point I said, let me do something. I mean, the very fact that I started writing columns, a lot of my readers don't read that page. And they're like, please write about romance and love and girls. What are you writing this Gadkari nonsense? I mean, the difference between Ravi's corporate is there are women and sex in them. Whereas Gadkari, I don't know. I mean, maybe there is, but obviously certain positions are ruled out.
If you want to write about sex and Gadkari,
yeah, that's like,
nobody
I don't
will
know.
read it.
Well, it's like, that probably will be called like 500 Shades of Grey or something like that.
Yeah.
Can the media guys here not distort this, please? Please, it's just a joke.
You have my permission to distort it as much as you like.
No, listen. Mr. Karnad has already done the
Chetan will be the next Karnad.
No. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm totally getting distracted. So you do pander, you do get into that space, you know what, and everybody puts pressure on you. My publisher, booksellers, sir, ek aur वैसी लिख दो, बिल्कुल वैसी लिख दो. And I'm like, no, I actually will be writing about politics and non-fiction pieces now. And they're like, has he gone mad? And yeah, there is a little bit of madness. When I wrote my first book, I didn't write Indian reader taking or I'm doing this. I wrote it because I wanted to write that book. Absolutely. And I have no idea what will happen. So I think at some point it took a lot of courage to say, you know what, I'm going to do something different. It may not even work. It may destroy, like there is a certain loyal reader who says, oh, his next book, I know what's going to be like. I'm going to pick it up.
Right.
And you know, and
When your
now
formula-
he's been like,
yeah.
wait a minute, fiction likha hai ya non-fiction likha hai, pata nahi, wo Gadkari वगैरह हमें नहीं पढ़ना. So, but so be it.
Yeah.
I want to write about India, and I also want to write about love and romance. So I wanted that room, and I did it. And I realized that if I delayed for one more book or whatever, the longer you delay, the more.
That's right.
So I think that is a separate discussion altogether, whether we should be true to ourselves or not.
Yeah.
And the popular writers, I think, find it harder because we are having an audience, we are having a base, and come on, we are not exactly the best writers in the world.
Right.
I mean, we are not
Absolutely.
as good as some of the other writers. At least I am not. So my only hope is the audience, which stays with me. So then I try to kind of do something which they don't want. Then it's different. But I think ultimately people see your conviction. People see that I'm not doing something different just for the sake of it. It means something to me. And I think maybe it's a lesser audience, but that audience I did gain by doing non-fiction. So I think that's there, that you should not let the reader take you. Like the topic is new, where is the new reader taking? New reader will tell you where to go. New reader will say, write another 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
Or new reader might tell me to do a sequel to my books.
Right.
And I know it's going to sell like 4 times the quantity. But the new reader is not going to, direct me. I will, they liked me in first because I had some new ideas, and I have told them, come listen to me, and I'm telling you, you'll like it. But if you then start saying, no, now you tell me what to do, what will you buy?
Yeah.
Then it's not, it's
Understood.
going to lead
You need to retain that balance.
It's a balance.
Of
I
independence
think
and-
it's a balance. Most of the purest writers say, no, I only write what I have to write. I don't care if anybody reads it or not. Then why do they approach publishers?
Absolutely.
I have never understood that, but I think it's a balance for everybody. The popular guys have to be a little more reader oriented, but not 100%.
Absolutely.
Because you will die. How will you do a book for 2 years unless you feel something about it, right? I mean, I think everybody has, all the people here have had that dilemma as to.
Understood. Pritish, let me come to you. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mark Twain said that a classic is a book that people praise but don't read. Does it worry you that the new reader might be taking us in a direction where so-called great books may remain undiscovered?
I think the new generation is leading us in a direction where what they like reading may not endure, and what they were once forced to read would be embalmed and forgotten. So future generations will have to discover their own Shakespeares. Nothing will remain. We have killed the past, or on the verge of killing the past, and I don't think the present is tapping into a sensibility that is enduring.
What would make it enduring?
I think we need to rise above our times. Auden wrote many poems. The ones that were relative to his times may have been forgotten. And in the nightmare of the dark, let the dogs of Europe bark, while the living nations wait, each sequestered in their hate. Follow poet, follow right, through the darkness of the night. Let your unconstraining voice teach the free man to rejoice. Now that's set in the war. But he endures. The poem endures because he's outreached the war. The poem has outlived the war and stays with us. That's true of even the old, the wimpy British poet, Darkness,
Right.
etc. stuff, Byron and
That's right.
Keats and Shelley and all the rubbish. But the point is, there was an enduring quality that was a characteristic of that kind of literature. Today's fiction, and I dare say, Chetan will even agree with me, is extremely rooted in the contemporary. So rooted, we all tap into it. Even I as a poet tap into it because it's so powerful. The contemporary is so powerful. So much is happening around us that has never happened before, that you tap into it and thereby trap yourself in contemporaneity and often find it difficult to rise above it. So I suspect that that shall not endure, and I suspect the classics are dead, we've killed it. So I suspect future generation something else. Do Xbox.
Uh,
Pritish, but contemporary or classics of today was contemporary of yesterday. So what you're writing today, okay, I'm not saying that Chetan or Ravi Subramanian might become classics of tomorrow, but I'm saying what you write today and what you see as contemporary today, the good works out of those might actually become classics of tomorrow. Shakespeare.
Theoretically, yes, but who will read Godin today? Tell me, who would by choice read Godin today? You might read Ismat Chugtai, a little bit of it, of her, because she talked of lesbianism, she talked of homosexuality, she talked of all kinds of intriguing things in those times. And we are talking about the 50s. But that they might read. But nobody's going to go back and read Prem Chand, nobody's going to go back and read Bankim Chandra. You'll remember him by, at the most, by Vande Mataram.
Yeah, well, I think he made some good points, and that's something to think about. But masterpieces come rarely. I mean, the fact is, and if every writer and every book is going to be compared with the masterpieces, that's just almost not a fair comparison. It's like comparing every movie with the best movie ever.
Yeah.
Comparing it's just not. But there is a balance, and I agree that it is a bit of an instant gratification, non-thinking kind of people out there who are consumers. And I'm not judging them, but that's the way they are. And I think, so for example, take Bollywood examples, movies like Reddy and movies like that, they do 100 crore plus business.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at pure commerce, only those movies should be made.
That's right.
Only those. Because any director who's making a Reddy will get paid more than, say, any other smallish movie that may have come. But there are some passionate people out there who just don't care. And I think it is up to us. That's where the balance is, that the new reader is important, but not the ultimate authority.
But I would say I'm trying to make a small point, which is that of the point of memorability.
I agree.
Will people remember? That's
That
my
requires the
concern.
quality of
How
the
many
work.
people here in this audience remember the film that Ritik Ghatak made? They wouldn't be able to even list them.
Yeah, but what's I think happening though is when the
Leave
same
alone
works are
what's
reinterpreted. For example, all the mythological fiction that is doing well. I mean, why is it a modern story of
Yeah.
Chanakya or a modern story of Shiva is doing? Because people are looking to make those mythologies relevant to us. When a Sarat Chandra novel may not be read now, but when it comes as a movie, it is seen again because it has the present day stars and the present day music. So yes, you're right. I mean, there is, and that's the best we can hope for, I think, right now. That there is going to be.
We'll do a Pritham on the grave, on Beethoven. Let Pritham
Yeah.
steal Beethoven and make him relevant to our
Well,
time.
if you ask the new reader isn't exactly a connoisseur. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that brings me to the next point, and which I want to direct to Ravi, which is that to a certain extent, we as the so-called new generation writers seem to be much more connected than writers ever were with their readers. And that's partly because of technology and social media. I mean, for heaven's sake, Pritish's last work was 140 characters. I mean, poems in almost tweet fashion, you could say. So I think to that extent, all of us are also now gradually becoming animals of social media. How relevant is social media in determining as to what you write or the topics that you choose? Does it play a role?
Social media does play a very, very relevant role today for multiple reasons. One of the key reasons why social media plays a role is because when you write a book, it's a lot more cheaper to target your segment, to go after the segment that reads you, and popularize your brand, popularize your books, popularize what you want them to see. But more importantly, social media is also a good medium for feedback. Okay. So for example, if today I have to step out of the world of banking and
Yes.
write a thriller based in a non-banking world.
Yes.
Feedback from the social media would be very important because that's the media I'm connected to.
Yeah, but don't you run the risk that someone might just turn around and say, listen, I want more of the same stuff? And if you have hundreds of tweets coming
Correct.
which say, I want more of the same stuff, then would you feel compelled to go there in that direction?
That's where your own conviction counts. And if you are convinced yourself that you are able to churn out fresh stuff for the reader and you're not serving him the same wine in a new bottle,
Yeah.
At that point in time, then it's fine. Then seeking a feedback from the audience, seeking a feedback from the readers, and then giving them what you think is right is fine.
Okay.
But that's where you have to use your own discretion, you have to use your own judgment and your own capability. See, the point is, all the authors are different. People are good at certain things. Okay.
Right.
You ask a Dan Brown to write a romantic story, he will not be able to write.
Yep.
Okay, so if you ask me to write a Chetan kind of a book, I will not be able to.